Assalamu alaikum, guys.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
How's everyone doing?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. How are you?
It's good to see you guys in your bedrooms. Always wanted to do that.
Not my bedroom actually, but it's good to
So
see you as well, Suboor bhai.
how's everyone doing
By
the
the way, is
lockdown?
the audio clear?
Sorry?
The audio, is it clear?
Yeah,
Yep.
we can hear you.
I can hear you. So let's start with Mansoor bhai. How are you doing? How's the lockdown been for you?
Alhamdulillah. I mean, it's not been a lockdown for me specifically because I've been working. Either I've been working from home or I've been working actually on site.
Okay. You're at Great Portland Street, right?
Not at Great Portland Street. You don't have to name the hospital where I'm working. Yeah. So in London.
In London. Okay. And have you been dealing directly with this particular pandemic, or just your regular duties?
Regular duties. I mean, we are getting all patients who are actually with COVID-19 as well.
Oh wow. Okay. So have you got?
We have a number of patients already in our hospital. Yeah. So.
Okay. So I'm guessing when you come home, you properly apply the hand sanitizer and all those things, and then.
Oh no, it's a proper. So
well.
when I come home, it has to be like all the clothes. Have to keep them separate away so they'll be for washing. I'll tell you, like it's like every day you come home, have a proper wash before you touch anything. So yes, as you enter the homes, you have to wash your hands properly first. All the clothes go in separately, and they will be for cleaning. So next day is the same routine over and over again.
Yeah, may Allah make things easy for you guys on the front line. You're actually more at risk than anybody else.
It's fine.
Continuously exposed to the virus. Hashim bhai, how are you doing?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, Suboor. Yes, we are, as you know, in UK. Well, not complete lockdown. It's more like a partial lockdown. I think they should be more strict here, if you ask me. To be honest with you, because things are not looking good in terms of the numbers of people affected, the number of people dying every day. Pretty grim numbers. So yeah, as far as work-wise, I mean, it's pretty much from home. Spending more time with the family, that's a plus side, I guess. So yeah, alhamdulillah, I mean, things all right. The biggest things that we miss are the masajids are closed, so even Jummah is not like the Jummah that we know normally, and I believe that's in most countries, not just the UK. So yeah, that's the biggest pain, I would say, in terms of what we miss during the daily lives. And yeah, alhamdulillah, trying to make the best of time from home, staying home with the family, trying to do things that we wanted to do all the time. And
you must be missing the corner, because I think you've been going there since I think before the Berlin Wall fell down, right?
Most likely. Which year was that?
So I want to know, like, I've been watching the old videos. I know Mansoor has been at the park since definitely like the early days. But when did you guys join the park, roughly? What year?
I think Mansoor was there before me. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I can clearly remember 1996, and obviously even before that, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely that. You were there definitely in the 1990s. I remember actually Abdul Rahim Green said to me that in the early days he learned most of the arguments against atheism from you. So yeah, you must have been in there quite early. MashaAllah. Sure. And what about you, Hashim? You came in what year roughly?
I probably late 90s.
Late 90s again.
Mansoor was probably mid-90s.
Yeah, the 1990s I remember specifically because this is when we set up Islamic Awareness website to counter the semi-pseudo-Orientalist accusations that were coming through. So that yeah, I remember clearly. So we were there before that, and Speaker's Corner was quite different then at that time, and it has changed a lot.
So what's changed about it? What do you think is different from then to today?
Well, one thing clearly is the presence that you can see us in social media. You can watch us live every day. There were no smartphones at those days, in those days, clearly. And so people weren't coming in knowing that they're going to be on camera and they have an agenda to work with, or people weren't reluctant to speak to you in that sense. because there are no cameras recording you, so the conversations were more frank and honest rather than showing off. There are many conversations that happens nowadays in Speaker's Corner. People are showing off. They have one face in camera and one face outside the camera. I mean, if you have noticed some of the evangelists that comes there as well. I mean, you think they're very bad, right? Very bad people. Some of those critics who all come there, but outside the camera, they're actually normal people. Quite surprisingly.
It's a source of income for them, I guess, because that's like their, that's their way of showing that, look, to their ministries, to their people, that look, we're effective, we're taking on these Muslims,
Yeah, most likely. I think it's to do with just vanity, maybe. Who knows? At the end of the day, if they have a different way of approaching the same conversation behind cameras and in front of the cameras, then there's some agenda, obviously. We don't know what that is precisely, but there seems to be, like Mansoor said, they're not as bad sometimes behind the cameras as they are in front of it.
Yeah. So Noura Osama, she's basically asking, what is the disadvantages and advantages of Speaker's Corner? So I'm guessing this has to do with now. What do you see as advantages of the fact that we have this avenue to express our ideas? What are the great things that come out of this?
So, I mean, the Speaker's Corner is a very unique place, as you may know. I believe they tried to have a similar place elsewhere around the globe and even within the UK, and were not successful. One of the things is we have got not only the authorities protecting just in case something goes wrong, either physical or verbal or whatever it is. They try to protect the, I mean, there is some sort of security there, which is not easy to provide unless and until the government makes an effort. And Speaker's Corner has been around for quite a long time, I think. If you look up on Wikipedia, it'll tell you all the famous people who actually promoted their ideas and their ideologies from Speaker's Corner. The other thing is, it's with the cameras today, it's become it's given it another unique approach, in the sense that you can broadcast your message on social media, which now becomes like a global platform in a way. So regardless of whether it's religious, political, whatever message you want to give, you can give it from this place, and it can propagate around the globe, depending on the channel that you upload your videos on. So it's a very unique place, I would say. Alhamdulillah, we have got this opportunity, both in terms of giving us security from the authorities, plus the freedom to speak our minds without any sort of coercion or hindrance. And it's quite a unique place, I think. Everywhere around the world, they should have a place like this where you can speak out your mind and communicate with other people.
Sure. Yeah, as you know from history, I mean, Speaker's Corner used to be a place or a platform where the political dissent, whether you have a difference of opinions, it's mainly to do with politics. That's how it used to be. And then religious discussions took over. And then when Muslims came in a larger number, and for a long time, it became a religious discussion point. And gradually, we'll see many other people from other religions, they came in and became religious discussions almost every week. Before the cameras, it was like a one-to-one unique experience, personal experience between people. They will sit down there. And I remember where we were listening to Abdul Rahim Green or some other brother, Sufyan and Abdul Razak, and especially Abdul Rahim Green. People will sit there on the ground while he's speaking on the ladder. I mean, that's how people showed interest then. And they will be actually after this speech or in between this speech, they want to become Muslims. They will give the Shahada. That's how it was. But of course, things started gradually changed after 9/11. This was a major event where people started to take things differently, where they would think Muslims, it's not like every other normal individual out there. So you have to go through a lot of neutralizing that actually we are human beings and normal people like you. So their default position, we found, was normally one of suspicion, that they're already having suspicion about you. So things went for a number of years, I would say, trying to neutralize that, where every discussion would be on this, based on this, and then you will start a discussion about Islam and how you want to actually take the message forward. As the cameras came through smartphones and videos, handycams and so on, people had their own small channels and they started uploading them. In fact, I had created one channel, at one point too, so that I can get interesting discussions, because you would then have control yourself what discussions you want to upload, and you can edit out all the rubbish, because there was hours and hours of discussion. And then as numbers have grown, it became very different, because now there are hundreds of cameras. I'm talking about it's so many cameras. So this obviously had its own advantages and disadvantages, especially the advantages where anything that you say, there is no frank discussions anymore. You have to say things in a measured way. Everything that you say, you can't even sneeze there without it being recorded. I mean, that's how bad it is. And many people don't want to get recorded. So you want to have a discussion, and then you're in the middle of a discussion, very nice discussion, cameras comes in, and the person that you're discussing with, they don't want to discuss with you anymore. They want to end the conversation, which was a really good, fruitful discussion that was going ahead. And that discussion abruptly ends. Not everyone, likes the camera. Once they see the camera, that's it. They won't even continue the discussion, even though the discussion won't be recorded.
Yeah.
And the other point I said about people will be very conscious of what they're saying. So anyone who's having a conversation, frankly, they would stop thinking and think differently and say things in a very measured way. So it's not like an honest conversations going sometimes. But obviously, at the heat of discussion, that changes. People don't think about the surroundings, how many cameras are there. In fact, when we are speaking, I mean, we don't really think how many cameras out there recording, throughout your side and the back and so on. And you realize, actually, there are cameras recording from the back and so on. So there are many disadvantages like this. But one of the biggest advantages is because of this cameras broadcasting, we are able to take the message that we were trying to deliver now to a global scale. And we are able to also make it in an educational way. So our arguments, you will see often, are geared for a learning, where we're not just trying to discuss with someone, our opponents or our counterparts, but we are making an argument so people can follow quite easily. So wherever that you are, whether you're in Indonesia, Pakistan, Nigeria, anywhere in the world, you can then take this argument forward and say, look, this is the criticism people are, levying against Islam, for example, and this is how to respond. So a lot of educational aspects there. I mean, and that's, I think, it's very important, because previously, all we had was lectures and books and videos and seminars, but now these are like constant crossfires. That's what it is. Speaker's Corner is it's like a crossfire in a debate where life exchanges happens without any preparation whatsoever. So that's one of the biggest advantages of Speaker's Corner, the person was asking earlier on.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good way of summarizing it, that there's definitely those advantages of showing that, look, we're putting out these ideas actually work, they're coherent, they're cogent, they actually make sense, and you can actually use them. Now, one of the things which I think I found powerful about it is that usually Muslims, they learn dawah techniques through a dawah course, but those things aren't really visualized. When you start to see those things applied and you see the reaction of the people and how they try to get back with the counter arguments and how you have counter arguments, it gives you a lot of confidence. I've forgotten which guy you were debating, Mansoor, but many years ago, you asked this atheist, he was basically saying that, look, things can evolve and things can change. And then you just put it to him that over millions of years, can a human being evolve into a potato? and he literally was dumbfounded. And I actually thought to myself, you know what, that's a really interesting point. And when I was doing research about what they call evolutionary plasticity, about how things can evolve, it is actually a very, it's like a parody argument, right? It's basically saying that, if we take your argument to its logical conclusion, then almost anything come out of anything. However, if you gave me that same piece of information in a talk in a mosque, say, about how to give dawah to an atheist, I probably would think that, oh, that doesn't really work, or that argument is not really rational. But just seeing it in action really gives you that confidence. And I think that's one of the great benefits of Speaker's Corner.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think, yeah, the interaction is the key, because as you know, when you have a lecture or even a talk, there is no interaction, there's no counter rebuttals, which makes it quite unique. So a debate and just giving dawah on a dawah table are two different things, yeah? So when you're on a dawah table, you have people who are genuine, who come to you and who want to know about Islam, perhaps. However, things are quite different. Things are quite different in at Speaker's Corner, where you have lots of people who come there specifically with an agenda or to somehow attack Islam. So they come there not to maybe learn, but to attack, and we have to be prepared for that. So as the dua, it's our duty to empower our Muslim brothers and sisters how they can approach certain difficult questions, either from a polemical or any other agenda that they have, and how to respond to those tough questions, which you normally don't get at the dawah table, perhaps. So many people say that, why you guys are so aggressive, why you guys are so always on maybe defensive even sometimes. But you see, in a debate, all these things have to be there for you to respond to them. The most important thing is, as long as you do it sincerely, with knowledge, and you do it for the sake of Allah. That's the key. If you do it for any other reasons, for the camera or anything else, then might as well not come to Speaker's Corner, or even in the dawah scene, because that's not our objective. So yeah, alhamdulillah, we empower our Muslim brothers and sisters how to respond correctly. And we learn sometimes from other people as well. You know, you'll be surprised. We learn from even the evangelists sometimes many new things. It's a learning curve. I would say it's always for a Muslim who is sincere, it's always there to learn from the people, whether they are from your same faith or a different faith, regardless. As long as the message, the key thing is like you do it to show that the truth is Islam. So worship of Allah is number one. That's a priority. That's the reason most of the time I probably attack the Trinity, because for me that is a form of polytheism. I think not for me, even for the Christians, if they know the real meaning of what they believe in, yes, many of them, inshallah, they'll become Muslims. So we have to make sure that Tawheed is the first priority. Everything else is kind of secondary, inshallah. I think we missed a few questions. Maybe we should take those.
We just had some special guests join us.
Look who's here.
Assalamu alaikum.
We're not gate crashing.
Nice to see you.
And Jordan, it looks like
Good to see you both.
Yeah, I've tried to get all technical with the backgrounds and stuff, but we're getting there.
I wish I had that background.
Nice backdrop, Jordan.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, I thought it was
He's got the best background.
Embarrassed to me, it's not.
Yeah.
How are you guys doing under the lockdown?
Abbas, you go first.
Can't hear you, Jordan. I think you're
You
on
can't
mute.
hear me. Second.
I couldn't hear you.
Alhamdulillah. Well, alhamdulillah, you know, Jordan said go first, so I'll go first. Alhamdulillah, I mean, it's a slight inconvenience, but the reality is that alhamdulillah, we're so lucky in this country. You know, we've got the internet, we've got mobile phones, we've got tablets, we've got food, alhamdulillah, shelter, you know, books to read. I mean, we're blessed in this country. A lockdown in this country actually is like a break from work and more of a holiday, really, than a difficulty. So, I mean, alhamdulillah, there's no complaints, really.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, I think similar to
Jordan's
Abbas.
still on mute. We can't hear you, Jordan.
Can you not hear? Can nobody hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Nancy?
I can hear you.
Maybe if can you hear me, Hashim? Maybe if should I drop out and jump back in again, or maybe you can just relay to Hashim what
I'll let him know what you're saying.
Basically, I echo what Abbas says. In some ways, I feel like my du'as have been answered. I've always wanted in my life a position where I don't work, I can just do my prayers, do my routine, learn a bit more. And obviously these aren't ideal circumstances, but I think, you know, it's an opportunity for some of us to, I guess, make the most. Obviously my heart goes out to people that are alone or can't afford to keep themselves going, and make dua for all of them. But yeah, I think up to now, I think I've certainly almost strangely enjoying the lockdown.
That's really positive of you. That's a good way of thinking about it, actually. So Hashim, what Jordan is basically saying is that this is an opportunity for sort of you know, just reconnect with Allah, I guess, and just have a break and, you know, do his prayers. And it's, you know, he's making the best of it. And I think a lot of us have had this opportunity that we perhaps haven't had in many years to spend time with our family. You know, also just maybe gain some knowledge and, you know, do things that we normally wouldn't do. You know, it's just a total break now from our usual routines and stuff.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is we seem to have had
It's just strange. I can't hear him. I can hear everybody else.
Yeah, so I think that happens sometimes on. We'll blame Nav, but I think in some ways I feel like we've submitted to the virus almost more than some of us submit to Allah itself. And so that there's that kind of feeling that, you know, because normally I try and fit my prayers around my day. I'm rushing around. I try and look at the time. And now it's almost like a complete, you know, like I say, it's an opportunity I'm trying to take advantage of.
Yeah. And I think also it makes us grateful for the small things, like going out for a walk or going to the gym, or, you know, things that we don't really value that much.
Yeah.
Now we're really starting to value it. Even
for some of us, it's been difficult. Like especially me, for example, I've been trying to keep my parents, you know, in a way separate from everyone else, and it's so difficult because your mom and dad won't understand what's, you know, why, you know, we are still family, especially because I'm constantly exposed with almost COVID-19 patients every day coming in, and I'm trying to, you know, keep my distance. It's so difficult, and I'm trying, like when I told, like, you know, even my brother can't even visit; he has to speak over the phone, you know, and I think she got angry with me, maybe. Allahu A'lam. But this is very difficult.
Yeah.
At one point when I had a little bit cough, early on I was coughing a few weeks ago, I was trying to keep distance from my children.
Yeah.
And I tell you, this is practically impossible. And we say, you know, you have to have, you know, you isolate yourself home and keep away from them. It's a struggle. It's been a struggle. May Allah make it easy for all of us. Especially those who are facing.
And you know, it's honestly, Mansoor, it's times like this that I really wish I was a doctor, or I really wish I was somebody on the front line. But then when I hear about the sort of practical difficulties in your own life, then you start thinking, okay, maybe not. Maybe I leave that to someone else that can actually handle the stress. Because, you know, the fear of you infecting your own family, I guess, must be, you know, traumatizing. Just the idea that you could be the reason, especially I'm guessing your parents must be in their 70s.
Yeah.
And that's a very high risk category. And, you know, that must be very difficult, you know, even the thought that you may actually be carrying the virus without even realizing it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I wanted to move on to something a little bit more, I think, engaging in terms of our audience in relation to how they can get involved and how we can relate this particular tragedy, this particular calamity, with conveying the message of Islam. So the way I want to do it is starting with Mansoor, then to Hashim, then to Jordan. I want to ask you guys, is this a time that we basically say, right, we're not really going to share the message of Islam because people are panicking, people are going to see this as opportunistic, or do we still need to engage people, and is this still an opportunity?
Right. I mean, this is a very interesting question. Those of us who are still alive, alhamdulillah, we shouldn't be in the sense of being very, you know, negative minded, like, you know, everything's going to be done with the rule and so on. Don't have this negative pragmatic view, but, you know, we should all be optimistic that, you know, and the important thing is to have this reliance of Allah, tawakkul ala Allah. So death is something that we know is fixed. Whether you die from COVID-19 or you die just, you know, get run over by, you know, a vehicle or something. It's something that is fixed. So there's, in that sense, we shouldn't be worrying about it at all. What we need to think about, like, this is a time, I think, for serious reflection, because this is one time the whole world is united against a common enemy. The whole world. It's not just Muslims only, the whole world. And if this is giving us a thought about our life and specifically about our death, I mean, as Muslims, we should have been reflecting every night before we go to sleep that, you know, what if I were to die tonight? Have I reconciled everything? I mean, have I been good to people? Who have I been bad to? I mean, you know, your daily reflections, just to see whether you're actually ready to take the journey of death and the journey afterwards, in the afterlife. So at least this should be an opportunity where we are reflecting constantly, and then we're changing ourselves. Hasn't the world changed already? The world has changed. The world is changing. Everyone's changing. I mean, come on, look at the hygiene routine now. I mean, I wish if everyone had this hygiene routine every day and everywhere, a lot of disease will be not on site at all. People will be very healthy. I mean, they did some kind of studies like this in China before, when they, at school, they taught them how to wash their hands properly through sinking and so on. And they found out that, you know, these children didn't get some other, you know, common diseases that other schools suffered because they weren't routinely hand washing. So yes, reflection about our life and death, and also about the way we live our lives. I mean, how do we see people? How do we interact with people? I mean, we should now come away from these ideas, not when you say we're talking about, you know, everyone in general, that we have to understand that human beings are human beings. And ideas of racism, you know, ethnicism, whether you're, you know, from another country, whether you're from a different background of color or race, this should be all gone by now. Because when you're facing a common enemy, what do you see? You have this empathy and you have this sympathy and you have this common unity within human beings. This is the time to actually revive that understanding that we are human beings, all from the children of Adam, all from Adam, we're the Bani Adam. And then what should be our roles and responsibilities today? Are we going to just live a selfish life and, you know, stockpile toilet papers? Of course, as Muslims, don't need to worry about that at all. But this is what was happening. People were scaremongering so much. They're stockpiling unnecessarily and not leaving for other people. I mean, this is utter selfishness. So we should really think about how to be selfless individuals, caring for other human beings. And in that sense, as Muslims, bearers of the truth, we should be thinking about how to give dawah to other people. So this should be an opportunity to actually think about how different ways we can now do this. I mean, this lockdown is not going to be forever. I mean, this will change, inshallah, for better. I mean, the viruses will be eventually come down. I mean, we will contain it and restrain it. And how are we then going to move forward? Are we going to just live our life exactly like we were doing before? I think not. We should totally take a different trajectory now. In terms of the way we deal with people, in terms of the way we see people. We shouldn't be looking down upon anyone else. Come on, this virus did not discriminate whether you're rich or you're poor, whether you're healthy or you're sick. I mean, you know, healthy people are dying, unfortunately, isn't it, as well? So why are we discriminating against people just because, you know, they're of a different background? I mean, maybe they're for a different social status, or they're from a different country, poorer country. So this is an enormous time for reflection and taking it forward from there.
Yeah, definitely. And I would completely agree with you that this is not a time that we should be shy and think that this isn't a time to share Islam, because right now people are more united than ever. Even here in Pakistan, there was an incident where the air traffic controller, because normally because of the bad relationship between the two countries, they don't let Indian flights fly over Pakistan, but they actually help them in terms of, they even let them come closer to Pakistan than they usually do. And the air traffic controller actually said, we're proud of you, because of you know, what India was doing, some sort of relief work. And the Indian media, which is normally very anti-Muslim, they actually put that on the media that even Pakistan supporting us. So two enemies are coming together during this time of crisis. So imagine that's at a macro level. At a micro level, you know, a lot of people, they're asking questions about purpose, meaning, value, existential questions, morality, and what is the meaning behind this suffering. And this is definitely a perfect opportunity. So, Hashim, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with both of you, what you said, Barakallahu Fik. It just shows to us our value as human beings, that regardless of our arrogance, that we are top of the food chain.
Yeah.
It seems like a small microbe that we cannot even see with our naked eye has locked majority of the world behind closed doors. And this is something very profound, because Allah keeps reminding us of our status in the Quran, that we are nothing but dust, or we are nothing but made of clay, or something, something insignificant. And we think so highly of ourselves when we are actually during good times. We forget Allah, we forget the Rabb, we forget the Creator.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a reset button for all of us. Yes, so it's like reboot, on your computer when it goes wrong, and you restart, and things maybe might come back to, I don't know, to more level-headedness, where you start thinking of your purpose in life, perhaps. So, Alhamdulillah, this has given us the opportunity to say istighfar as much as possible, to ask Allah for forgiveness for all the things that we have done, either knowingly or unknowingly, deliberately or not. And perhaps it also shows the non-Muslims, perhaps, that if you take away their jobs, if you take away the work that we all do, and this goes for Muslims as well, what else is the purpose, besides bringing bread for your family? What else is your purpose in life if you take away? Now, you're sitting at home, you cannot go to work, you cannot feed your family, maybe you rely on your savings, or maybe somebody else helping you. So what really is the purpose? Maybe now is the time to perhaps reflect on this. And alhamdulillah, this lockdown has given us that opportunity. So we don't have any more excuses of not connecting with our families. Before we used to say, oh, I'm always busy, I don't have time. Yeah. Maybe now is the time to speak to your mom and dad, which you haven't done for a long time. Maybe to your uncles and aunts, make those networks which you might have forgotten about, reconnect. Yeah. So alhamdulillah, there's a lot of things that we have learned from this. So all those powerful countries, they are now kind of losing in terms of economy, in terms of their health services being reduced to almost to such an extent that it's kind of overwhelmed. Yeah. Like in Italy, you get 1,000 people dying a day. Never heard of this before, except during wars.
Yeah.
So this is, yeah, go on.
That's definitely right. I just wanted to interject. I've been asked to prod in you guys in terms of the answers to some of the questions which are being put.
Yeah, sure.
So one of the questions is this particular COVID-19 a punishment from Allah? What are your thoughts on this? If someone wants to answer it, or if you don't.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a punishment. It can be maybe, like I said, a wake-up call for all of us. There's a very good hadith that I have here from the Prophet ﷺ. It's in relation to this epidemic and pandemic. So it says in here that the Prophet ﷺ said, if a person in the time of an epidemic plague stays in their home patiently, hoping for God's reward and believing that nothing will afflict them except what God has written for them, they will get the reward of a martyr. That means they'll get the reward of a shaheed. Yeah. Now this includes everyone that has patience, yes, hopes in the reward, and has reliance. That means full trust in Allah, in God, while taking while they are in this situation. So regardless of whether they have passed away due to epidemic disease or did not die, and you're just staying at home with this belief, then you will get the reward of a shaheed, of a martyr. And that is huge. The reward of a shaheed is massive. They are like the top in the Jannah. So alhamdulillah, we all should reflect on this situation. Inshallah, maybe somebody else want to add to that.
I want to put a question to Jordan here. If you go back to when you were a non-Muslim, how would you have viewed this particular lockdown and what's happening and the trials and tribulations that you may be going through, and how you're dealing with it as a Muslim now? What is the difference between those two sort of states?
Good question. And I think you made the point earlier that this is probably a time when a lot of non-Muslims are actually, there's no distractions, and it's actually a time to ask the bigger questions. It took me to the age of 34 to actually ask any kind of big question. I was just kind of, I would say, just sort of, influxed in my life, in my daily life, in my material things and things like that. This is really a time, as Hashim said, where all that stuff becomes pretty irrelevant. You look on the news, there's death tolls. We're all unsure what's going to happen. We're all scared to go up the shop. Yeah. And so, good question. How would I have been? I don't know if I would have necessarily looked to religion, but I certainly would have been somebody who would be, I wouldn't say vulnerable, but I would certainly be, wondering. My mindset would be, what's going on here? What can I do? I think I certainly would have turned to my family and things like that. I think as a Muslim, I would say I'm coping with it a lot better. I mean, I would say you could say this is a test from Allah. I think to say it's a punishment from Allah, I think, who are we to really say, to put ourselves in Allah's position to even make that judgment? But I would say that each thing that gets thrown is a test. I know that Allah, tests the ones he loves most. And I think I now view most things in life as more of a test to overcome, as opposed to feeling sorry for myself.
That's a really profound answer. And I think maybe perhaps one of the blessings of you coming to Islam and realizing at the age of 34 is that you were a Muslim at the time of this particular pandemic. Because even though you said, I only started asking these big questions at the age of 34, a lot of people don't ask these questions until they get to their 60s, right? So you're not late on that sort of bandwagon there. Just a quick question, I'll put it to Brother Abbas, because we haven't had him speak for a while, and what's it called? Naveed just got rid of the question. I was just about to read it. But anyway, that's just a general comment. Anyway, so Abbas bhai, with this particular issue that we're facing now, how is this different? Of course, you must have been in your life gone through many different issues. We had the recession in 2010, we had the recession in the 80s, we had all these different things going on. How is this particular economic dip and the people's mood different to everything that you've experienced in the past?
Well, if I may slightly allude on the question before as well, which is that I think Jordan is quite right. We shouldn't judge what Allah may have or may not have done and why he may have done it. Be a test for some and a punishment for others, right? It doesn't have to be a test for everybody. It doesn't have to be a punishment for everybody. And we don't know, of course, the intentions that Allah may have. Now, going to your question, obviously, it's fundamentally this because though they have...
Your voice is cutting off. Naveed, could you let us know if there's an issue on his side, if his mic is on, or can everyone else hear me?
Yeah, I think Abbas's internet.
Abbas is just frozen there. So look, I'll just ask a general question, whoever wants to answer it. One of the questions that non-Muslims are asking, and even some Muslims are asking, is why? Why does God allow this evil to happen? People are dying, and not, it's not just the case that bad people are dying. Everyone's affected. I mean, what's the Islamic response to the problem of evil and suffering in this regard?
Mansur?
I mean, you just brought in one of the very important and serious questions about suffering. I mean, suffering is part of this reality. I mean, we were not put in heaven. This is not heaven. Heaven is a place where there will be no suffering. To go there, you have to make yourself, deserving of that place. Especially when you're created with free will, which entails your actions can be good or bad. And evil is not necessarily a thing that is evil. I mean, we say actions are evil. What you do are evil actions. What happens with natural disasters and so on is a different matter altogether. This is part of the natural world in which Allah has placed us. And he's told us to not to upset that balance, He's made the world huge expanse, not to be, living in particular bordered areas. So, this is your area that you can go in. You need to have a passport to go to somewhere else. We've made these artificial boundaries. So if there are areas where there are earthquakes and so on, for example, all these natural areas of natural disasters, if the world wasn't as it is now with political demographics, you could have moved away from these areas and live in other places where there aren't these problems. So natural disasters is not something that, you have to think about, why there. It's because we have put ourselves there artificially, in various ways, restricting ourselves. When it comes to actions, that's what's the most important part. What we do, for example, I have free will, and I'm sure most people should agree. I mean, there are people who don't agree that they have free will. They're fully deterministic, and they think that they're just like robots. Something happened before, and out of this consequence, these actions are taking place now. But leaving aside these peoples, if I were to stab someone, and murder someone, for example, this action is considered to be an evil action, a sinful action. Can I not stop doing that? Can I not prevent myself from doing that? And this is where what becomes important to understand. I mean, actions can take place, and they all take place because this is the will of Allah. And there's two types of will of Allah. And on this particular one, when I will to harm someone, if Allah willed otherwise, I would have done so. I would be prevented from doing that. But that would mean then, for every intention that we have of utilizing our faculty of free choice wrongly, God intervenes, then you have no free choice. Just think about this. If God were to intervene in every bad actions, whether it's a rape or a murder or any bad things, then you really don't have any free will. So Allah can intervene whenever, in His wisdom He intervenes, but He lets us to operate within our freedom, within our boundary that we are allowed to exercise our freedom, and we're responsible for those actions. Now, to say that these are evil are not really understanding the whole concept of free will, because I'm exercising my free will, which allows me to have that action which we think is evil, isn't it? So suffering exists for the very reason that we have the existence of free will. That's one way of looking at it. And if we didn't have this binary, the opposites of good and evil, then you probably wouldn't understand the world that Allah has created. How would you appreciate what is good? How do you appreciate what is blissful? Something that something that's joyous. If you did not have the counterpart, the opposite, you would not understand that. So there are reasons why Allah has created the opposites, so we know what is good and what is bad, and we appreciate that. I mean, this is just a simple way of understanding it.
Okay, that's I think a really comprehensive way to give out the Islamic framework of understanding the world. And I think the most important thing you said was right at the beginning, that we weren't created for this life to be heaven, or in other words, for it to be a cosmic disco party. Why aren't we always happy? Why aren't we always healthy? Why don't we have bulletproof skin? You can ask a million sort of questions about this. So I just got a message. Jordan, you had a question?
Yeah, I had one to come on with. If I could just add to that a very, very short point, it's something that I kind of learned recently, and because particularly when you hear a lot of ex-Muslims that perhaps leave Islam because of suffering or perhaps things in their life aren't going that well. I think as a Muslim, our love for Allah and our trust should be unconditional. And I think if you are questioning this and almost blaming Allah, I think you're almost setting a conditional love for Allah, which I don't think we should have. That was one point I wanted to add.
Yeah, brilliant. I agree.
My question was to I know you guys have been going Speaker's Corner a long time. So my first time at Speaker's Corner was 2 years ago. And when I came, what struck me, and I came as a non-Muslim, so I came as I was looking into Islam, but I came as a pretty unbiased looker. It struck me that the park was very much a lot of Muslims giving dawah, and then the other half seemed to be a lot of people. I remember hearing all sorts of things slander about the Prophet, peace upon him, awful language towards Muslims. I saw Christians standing up on ladders talking about Islam, which confused me. I saw a lot of this stuff. And so what I wanted to ask is, has this been a gradual thing over time, or what has caused this kind of anti-Islam sentiment or this obsession with Islam at Speaker's Corner? Is it is it a window to the world? Is that really what you think is going on, or is it exclusive to Speaker's Corner? But yeah, I'd like to, obviously, as people that have been, I can't imagine Speaker's Corner was like this in 1996, but I could be wrong. It'd be interesting to know your take.
So Hashim, what do you think about that?
Hashim first.
I couldn't hear a word Jordan is saying. I have no idea why.
Why
censored on my
let me repeat. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear everybody else except Jordan.
Okay, so what Jordan basically said, right now in Speaker's Corner, there's a lot of Islamophobic type of attitudes. There are people attacking the Prophet ﷺ, attacking Islam, and is that the case was that the case in 1996, or is this actually a general reflection of what the public thinks, or do we? I guess this question is intended towards: is this a true representation of the British public thinks, or is this a sort of extreme, are we just saying an extreme end of the spectrum, highlighted more at Speaker's Corner? I hope I've articulated the question properly.
Yes, I understand the question now. So yeah, I believe it's a small minority, even amongst the British people, and I think even amongst the Christians and the atheists, it's a small minority who basically have this questions, like the young marriage of Aisha radiallahu and other questions that they keep posing, even though they have been responded to, I would say, at least hundreds of times, if not one or two. The same questions come along all the time, and I believe they do have an agenda. That's what I mentioned in one of the comments I made earlier as well. So, but the reality is that people will get asked these questions. So what does a Muslim do? And this is where we have to step in, where we have to fill the void, that we have to respond to these tough questions with wisdom and with the correct knowledge and information that we have. So we can't just shove it under the carpet and saying, oh, you guys are all a bunch of radical fundamentalists or whatever it is. The reality is, in Speaker's Corner is a reflection of a true society where you have both the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And we have to deal with both the people who bring these tough questions plus the people who ask genuine questions, and we should be prepared for both, I believe.
Yeah.
So yes, I believe these questions were asked in the time before the cameras came to Speaker's Corner, which is about, I think, 4 or 5 years now. So before, they were also asking similar questions. So during the time of when Abdul Rahim Green used to come to Speaker's Corner and the other senior brothers who used to go there, they used to be asked the same questions. Maybe less, I would say, in terms of frequency, but they definitely were asking the same tough questions. And that's the reason you have this websites like IslamicAwareness.org, which Mansur mentioned that he got involved at a very early stage, where we have, in terms of when they ask questions about the Quran, whether it's the early manuscripts of the Quran. So you'll find these manuscripts of the Quran, I mean, all displayed on IslamicAwareness.org, including all the variants which they claim or alleged variants of the Quran, which are different qira'ats. So we have to respond to these tough questions in an academic manner. And alhamdulillah, we are doing that either at Speaker's Corner or on websites like IslamicAwareness.org.
Okay, excellent. Just before Mansoor also gives his 2 cents on this, I just wanted to let everybody know who's commenting. We are going to be taking your questions, and we are looking for your questions. At the moment, the comment section is just filled with general comments. That's why I haven't been taking these as questions. Also, the questions haven't really been related to what we're actually speaking about. So if you guys can write down your questions and try to keep them on the topic of what we're speaking about right now, which is the history of Speaker's Corner, the change from the sort of from 9/11, and also about this being a good time to actually speak to people, the problem of suffering. Try to keep questions for that. And actually, we just had a question for Brother Mansoor, which
can I share it in the screen?
Can you give me? Yeah, Tariq Rahman says, Mansoor, can you give me your views on the virus in light of Islamic eschatology?
Okay, when you say eschatology, you mean eschatology, right?
Yeah. End of times.
End of times. Sure. Right. We shouldn't think too highly of this phenomenon as if like this is a, one of the signs of near the end of times or something like this, right? I mean, many plagues happened even before this, and even the Islamic world were struck. I mean, there are volumes of books written by very, very highly respectable scholars of the past, where even their family members actually passed away in these epidemics. Recently, Yasir Qadi, I think he gave a talk highlighting a few of those plagues that happened and touched the Muslim world as well. So we shouldn't think like this is something unique phenomenon. It's unique to us because in our generations, we haven't seen it, something like this, perhaps, as big as this. So don't think about this is a sign. I mean, think differently, like, why are these things happening? I mean, if you were to consult the hadith literature, it's quite clear why epidemics happen without going into the details. We know why major pandemics or plagues happen, and the Prophet ﷺ really given the explanation for it as to what we should be doing to prevent these kind of epidemics to happen is what we should be thinking about most. Because there are ways that human beings can unite to prevent these things, because these things will happen because of certain actions of human beings, right? I mean, Islamically, we know that quite clearly.
Yeah.
So this virus or any other plagues that is to come, we shouldn't be thinking and linking with the end times. We have clear documentation in our hadith literature. What are the minor signs and what are the major signs? So don't delve yourself too much into thinking, could that be one of these minor signs or something? There's no need to. The ones that are outlined, they're very clear. And what should we be doing as a response is what should we be thinking, rather than saying, oh, Dajjal's coming, Imam Mahdi is coming, let's wait for it, let's wait for them to settle this. No, how are we dealing with our lives and our actions? Are we actually live our life according to the test that we are put on? Remember, every life for every individual is a test. Because our life individually is a test as well, right?
Yeah,
isn't
absolutely.
it? Yeah. How are we fulfilling that test ourselves? First and foremost, are we fulfilling the purpose of our creation? To worship Allah and and avoid worshiping false gods. And false god comes in different forms and shapes. Whether you're totally relying on a different system altogether, in lieu of your total reliance of Allah in Allah. That's what we've been reflecting on. I hope this answers the question briefly.
Absolutely.
If I may come back to the question Jordan was asking. Jordan, this is quite an interesting aspect of study, I would say. I wish somebody could do an academic study of Speaker's Corner dynamics over the years, because it's certainly ever changing. I mean, I can tell you, being there for a long time, we can see the shift in trends of how the dynamics changes, not just because of the introduction of social media cameras specifically, but people's, questionings and their viewpoints and their interactions with Muslims or even other people. It has changed. And one of the point I mentioned earlier is the 9/11 was one of the key points where things changed quite drastically and dramatically, and it took a long time for us to regain the normalcy within the Speaker Corner platform. What is happening nowadays, in my estimation, is this: people are now seeing and being exposed to the interaction that happens in Speaker's Corner because of the cameras, right? Now, because there are other people, religious people, they want to also show that they are on the truth side, that they're winning against the Muslims. So the debate seems to concentrate on this point, like how do we somehow show that other religion is refuted or debunked? That seems to be the goal of many people, not really having a good discussion, and you learn both at the end of the day, and you may clear up some of your misconceptions. Likewise, that doesn't seem to be the goal on a broader scale. What seems to be happening is there are groups that are coming through with a specific agenda, as Hashim was saying, in which they want to say, like, we are the truth holders exclusively, and say Islam is false, the other religions are false, and so on. How do they do that? Their strategies have changed. In the past, there were different kind of accusations or criticisms against Islam or against the Muslims or against the Prophet, against the Quran, against Islamic teachings. What is now being concentrated on are the ones to do with emotional aspects. Like, if you're going to be politically correct, what sells most now? If you think about it, the understanding people have today of their moral behaviors or what's morally acceptable, like, oh, you can't marry someone young, for example. So they will bank on this, as Hashim said. They will bring up the age of Aisha radiallahu anha and saying, how can a 53-year-old man marry a 6-year-old girl? Okay, how can you have this kind of? So you will see there's only a handful of criticism, which if you were to go back and look at the historical literature of other religions' criticism against Islam, it wasn't the case at all. I mean, in terms of the violence, Christianity and Judaism, I mean, there's always been violence within their own fields, on beliefs. How is it that they, I mean, especially Christians, are coming up and saying Muslims are violent? Look at this. It's because what's happening politically, and they want to now use this and saying, look, Islam is violent, as you have seen in your everyday life experience, whether a bus is being blown up there or a building here or a building there, and it's there in their books. So they're trying to justify that and say it's actually Islamic teaching rather than some crazy Muslims doing this. So the dynamics has changed from that point of view. People are trying to somehow, I won't say utilize, exploit certain political situations and link that with the Islamic ideology to somehow undermine Islamic theology and Islamic belief and practices.
Definitely. I think that's a very important aspect of it, that it's sort of like deflection, right? So Christians do this, militant evangelical Christians do this, when Islam is being attacked, they then can defend their worldview a lot more easier. Now, I want to put a question to Jordan, which was actually asked in the comments section. So somebody lives with their housemates, flatmates, who are non-Muslim. Now, of course, in this situation, they're not going to be, in self-isolation from them. And how would they approach the conversation of religion and faith within the current context?
Yeah, good question. So I think that the strongest thing that we have as Muslims is Tawheed. So I think you'd always start there. You'd always start discussing whether they believe in a creator. And I think that's a fairly, I'm not going to say easy, but I think that's you should be able to get someone to at least accept that what we have around us didn't come from nothing. And I think once you've done that, I mean, for me personally, it was looking into the Prophet, peace be upon him. My knowledge, and generally the average person's knowledge of the Prophet, peace be upon him, is warlord, Aisha. I think there are so many special stories that you can show the character of the man, and you can. And the other thing I'd say is the four propositions that Hamza uses quite a lot. Was he a liar? Was he deceived? And I think once you've gone on that line, then I think that's the line I would go on for sure.
I think that's really powerful, the way that you explained that you start off with Tawheed first, and this is extremely important. And I'm glad you realized this quite early, because I definitely didn't recognize this when I first started giving dawah. I first started speaking about a particular miracle of the Quran or a particular prophecy which came true. But if a person doesn't believe in God, Islam is not going to be true for them. You have to start with Tawheed. You have to start with the belief in God. And once that's clarified, then explaining a miracle of Islam is easier. And sometimes you don't even need the miracle. It's just enough that you have just explained that Islam is in line with what your rational fitrah, your natural state is, which is God is one, unique, nothing like his creation. Brother Abbas just came back, so I just put the same question to him that I put to Jordan. Somebody was asking that they have non-Muslim mates that they're living with at the moment, and within the current context, what's the best way to approach them and speak to them about Islam?
I've always said that the best form of dawah is your own behavior and how you hold yourself. And your behavior, your level of sacrifice, your level of wanting to help others, your etiquette, your decorum, your manners should be so impressive because you're following the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that when the people see you, they want to know what it is that makes you the way you are. And this is the best form of dawah. And the Prophet ﷺ, many times he told the Sahaba, when they asked him what's the best thing that they can do, he asked them to go and perfect their character.
Yep.
And in fact, the Prophet ﷺ said many times that, and in fact, I think, I have not come but to perfect your character. He singled it out to sort of one thing. And of course, the Prophet ﷺ came for many things, but he just emphasized, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, just how important it is to have a good character. Yeah. And that is the best form of dawah. Because, if your character is not good, it really doesn't matter what you say to people. They're not going to be attracted to Islam because they will always judge Islam by you, by what they see of you. And so I would say fundamentally, really concentrate on that first. Be the most just, the most honest, the most straightforward, the most helpful, the most forgiving person that you can be, inshallah, according to the Sunnah. And that in itself will soften their hearts to want to find out what it is that actually makes you the way you are. And that will be the greatest attraction to Islam. And then, of course, you can always then have discussions that, like Suboor, you do, and Mansur and Hashim and even Jordan, in terms of, asking them the more meaningful questions as to what, why do you think we're here? Where do you think we came from? And opening up the floor to a logical discussion. But before that happens, as I say, character is very important.
Yep, absolutely. Your character speaks way louder than the word.
Let me just add on this. This is very, very good points that both of you mentioned. One of the things that we should be very frank and open. If somebody asks a question which is difficult, acknowledge that, okay, I may not know the answer, but let me find out for you, rather than try to whitewash it or coat it with something like, oh no, we don't treat our women like this. In fact, there are many cultures that treat women very badly. And you just have to differentiate that this is not the teaching of Islam, but this is teaching coming from the cultures that we are living in and we are so accustomed with. So you should never just say some things which you don't know the answers to. Just say, I don't know, and find out. Simple as that, rather than making up an answer, because now information is in people's fingertips, right? Literally, where they can just go and find out, what does Islam say about this? And when they see a conflict, a different answer altogether from what you've given, then you've totally undermined your credibility to have a discussion and discussion further, because they won't take you seriously. So this is very important, that if you know, explain as much as you can. If you don't know, then say, look, I'll find out from someone who knows, or I'll just look it up myself. And also, Brother Jordan,
I think one of the things I'd like to add to that.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay,
sorry.
Just 1 second, guys.
Sorry, Mansur.
So we're running out of time, and SCDawah is going to be playing a video right now, and we just want to have a few comments on that, and then we're going to wrap up. Sorry to interrupt you, Brother Abbas.
That's okay. That's okay.
Hope it's a good video.
We can't hear anything.
We can't hear you.
Well, it's Victor.
SCDawah, we need the sound on. Well, you can tell by the body language someone's about to get demolished.
We can assume it's etiquette.
We can't hear it, but I think I've seen enough to remember the clip.
Yeah, okay. Let's go with that. So what's happening?
The funny ones.
Yeah. So if I remember, if it's the same discussion, because I can't hear the sound, this particular gentleman somehow, after, on questioning, he said he's actually literally the biological son of God. I could not handle that. I just left after he mentioned this. How can you even argue any further? This was shocking, to say the least. He literally says he's the biological son of God. Biological.
That wasn't a slip up. He meant it.
No, it's not a slip up. He actually meant it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the video title? Maybe we can go and have a look at it later on.
There you go.
There you go.
That was it. I took my hat off. Said, okay, that's it. I
can't deal with
the
it.
discussion.
So Mansur, basically, look, the best reaction here is just to say, fine, that's it. Right, this is too much for me. So, one of the things which I really like about the brothers who've been there for a long time, like Mansur and Hashim, is that you guys, you can really, in the most difficult situations, you still hold your manners, you're still polite. Like in this situation, I mean, I probably would have just cussed the guy and just ridiculed him. Mansur was like, I'm not gonna, make sushi out of you, but I'll walk away and I'll take off.
It's worth mentioning a few things though. In Speaker's Corner, because of the way interactions happen, many times, you feel so much, anger within you, and you have to control yourself because of people incite you so much, because they do that deliberately. They mock you, ridicule you. If we didn't have that patience, we would not be able to have a discussion there. I mean, because we were constantly trying to learn and control ourselves with patience, and we ask people also to make dua for us on this specifically, you would not maintain a conversation like this at all. So it's very, very difficult. So that shows that when you are having discussions with people, it's very important to keep calm and have that patience, because at the end of the day, if your negative attitude was the result of that person going away from thinking about Islam, then you've done total opposite of instead of encouraging people to think about Islam and into accepting it eventually, you're driving them away. So that's what we try to do as much as we can, not to make ourselves the reason why they come away from Islam because of our discussions. So patience is very, very important. And Jordan, just to quickly mention the point I was going to say earlier, Speaker's Corner, I don't think it reflects the overall, mentality or understanding of people throughout even UK, for example, because we are based in London, because we have discussions in Leicester Square. Many brothers go there every day, and they see a totally different number of people, and their approaches are different. It is true there's a growing trend of this hostility against Islam, the negativity of Islam, but it doesn't reflect that the majority of people are like this. Maybe those who are evangelicals, maybe those who are into, interreligious debates, they have taken a very hostile approach, a negative approach to Islam. But if you look at people in the streets and so on, I mean, I have a lot of people, within my area that I live in. I don't see this is reflected within their behavior. They're very anti-Islamic or anti-Muslim in that sense. So Speaker's Corner is a different area altogether. It may show, because people are taking from there, and if you look at the website and so on, so it's a growing trend, but how much it reflects to the overall population's mentality, we shouldn't equate that to a broader aspect that, yes, majority of people are like that.
Yeah. Definitely. Now, what I want to do is, we just have 2 minutes before we're going to end. So I'm going to ask everyone to give me just a 30-second reminder, because all of you guys are being watched by our regular Speaker's Corner commentators and fans. So something you'd like to take away before the next time we go live, something that you found of benefit yourself during the lockdown that you want to share. Starting with Mansoor, then Hashim, then Jordan and Abbas.
Even though initially I've been quite busy just reading about what's happening, because we didn't understand about the disease itself, how it spreads, what we should be doing, and so on. So it took us a lot of time to get to know this disease and this virus. But now that we know a lot, we shouldn't, spend too much time just counting the death numbers every day and, getting depressed ourselves. We should move on and say, okay, we've got enough free time. How can we utilize it? Memorize a surah, read a surah with the tafsir, with the exegesis, reflect on it. Take that time and use it productively and connect with families. Very important. And friends.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. I mean, we make the most of the time that we have. Free time is not something that you get all the time. So now is the opportunity to make the most of it. Alhamdulillah, we got Ramadan in the next couple of weeks. So perhaps prepare for that, The Ashab, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, they used to prepare months in advance. We got only a few weeks. So alhamdulillah, set the trend from now, the pace perhaps, and inshallah by the time Ramadan approaches, you will be perhaps reading Quran, doing the tilawat, praying your nafils, praying obviously in addition to your faraid, the 5 times salah. So alhamdulillah, this is the time to reflect and prepare for Ramadan. Maybe Allah has given us this opportunity. In the past, we always had excuses, yes, like work or some other purpose that we had. But now everybody's in lockdown and there's no excuse. So alhamdulillah, make the most of it. In a way, it's good that this lockdown is there because it is for not only for our benefit, but the benefit of the other people as well, because we don't want to spread the disease, the virus, the COVID-19. So it's imperative that all places of worship, or wherever there's crowds, where there's an event or any other thing, all of them have been shut down for a good reason. And I think people should abide by that. They should not break that rule that the government has imposed in a way, even though in the UK it's not very strict, but it's something that everybody should volunteer to perhaps make the most of it. So it's not just the government or the NHS, or which is the National Health Service, or even the ulamas who are recommending that you stay home.
Yeah,
everybody is kind of agreed. There's like a consensus on this, that if you stay home, then you are making the lives of people like Mansur, who works in the NHS, the doctors, the nurses, you're making their job easier in a way, and taking the burden off them by staying at home and not spreading the virus around. Yeah. So inshallah, pay heed to this. Make the most of the free time you have in your ibadat with your family. Alhamdulillah, this is the opportunity Allah has given you. So make the most of it, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair.
Inshallah. So yeah, if I can make the 2 quick points, I would make the first one. I would say is really be careful with the unverified information you're spreading at the moment, because there's a lot of it going around on social media, and even just through our mouths, we hear things, whether it's about conspiracies, whether it's about, they're not helping people in hospitals, or the symptoms only do this. Unverified information can be very dangerous, and we know as Muslims we warned against it. So that'd be the first point I make. The second point I make is, and I think Suboor, you asked earlier about, is this a good time for dawah? And I think it is, but I work at a sports club, and I went on a course that told me how do I increase the membership of my club, and they said to me the most important thing is the retention of your current members. So I feel like as Muslims, if we can strengthen each other within the Ummah, I think these live streams are a great thing. I know, Suboor, you're doing plenty of live streams on Darwinian delusions. I know Abbas, we're doing some of that. I think things like that, calling people up, making sure people are okay, ensuring everyone's all right. And obviously, it's not only exclusive to Muslims. I'm not saying that. I do feel it's a time when we can strengthen in that way. So yeah, they're the 2 points I'd make.
Jazakallah khair. Definitely the reminder you gave that not to spread false information, because that can end up costing lives, right? And I think that's a very responsible Muslim. As a responsible Muslim, you should not do that. Brother Abbas?
Yeah, I always thought if I had money and I didn't need to work, then I'd do more to learn Arabic, or do more, to improve my understanding of the religion. And the first couple of weeks of isolation, and I sort of found myself being quite lounging around and being quite lazy. And I thought, subhanallah, if you'd had all this money, then you'd just be lounging around all day, And so I thought, subhanallah, that can't go on. So I'm trying to do a little bit of Arabic grammar. It's quite difficult, but I've just sort of started. I haven't done quite as much as I would like to do every day, but it's a start. And we in Jordan and some of the brothers at SCDawah, we're trying to do every day, every other day, live stream. And alhamdulillah, it's getting thousands of views, and we're getting very good feedback from brothers and sisters. We had Imran on yesterday, Dr. Imran, who gave quite a lot of, question and answers in relation to what's the latest in terms of how to deal with it. And a lot of brothers and sisters were asking lots of different questions. So, mashallah, just trying to I suppose, better ourselves during this time, because we have this opportunity, and not to waste the opportunity, like Hashim said, take advantage of this opportunity. So when you come out, inshallah ta'ala, of this, out of this, lockdown, that you are actually stronger and better, and you've benefited from it, and you haven't just been wasting the time. I would say that's perhaps the best thing you can do.
Absolutely. And as the Prophet ﷺ said, that people, paraphrasing here, but health and freedom are two blessings that people don't really properly utilize. So Jazakallah khair to everyone, Mansur, Hashim, Jordan, Abbas, for giving us your time. Everyone, may Allah bless you, may Allah protect your families, may Allah make you means by which many people.
Ameen. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah for hosting.
We will invite you again.
Saboor, just before we go, me and Jordan have actually spoken about it, I think, in the past. We'd like to get you on one of our live streams to ask you a lot more about, evolution and about cosmology, because I know you've had some really interesting debates with Phil. I've heard them a couple of times, and we'd like to really touch on some of those subjects, because these tend to be subjects often that can misguide people and eventually end up turning them away from Islam if they misunderstand the concepts. So we'd love to get you on, inshallah. Is that right, Jordan?
I better start reading.
Absolutely. And I'm also being reminded at the bottom that make sure you subscribe and join the live streams of SCDawah, which, by the way, are you guys doing every day or every other day, or how's it working?
We've been doing it every day.
We've done 4 or 5 already.
Yeah.
So you obviously schedule it and people know from beforehand, right?
Yes. We need to do better at that.
Yes.
But we're sort of planning 2 days ahead at the moment, but we will put in a week schedule in advance for next time.
Excellent. And
Hashim and Mansur, we'd like to get you on as well, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Definitely.
Hashim and Mansur, we'd like to get you on as well, inshallah.
Inshallah, brother. Jazakallah khair.
So Jazakallah khair to everybody who participated by commenting. We're sorry we couldn't answer every single one of your questions, but keep commenting in the comments below, and we may answer those questions during the next live stream. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.